The rumors are starting to heat up and maybe some that you weren't expecting. I know I wasn't. And they're about a couple things. Starting off with the San Francisco 49ers might be really invested in this tight end draft class. Two, are the San Francisco 49ers about to lose assistant GM Adam Peters to the Texans? We're about to talk about it all right now. Make sure you smash that like button, drop an SDS in the chat. There's some smoke blowing. We're gonna hunt it down. Let's go. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, Sourdough Squad? It is Thursday, almost all the way through the week. We're gonna find out if we can make it to Friday. Just like Kyle Shanahan says, you never know. We can't guarantee anyone's gonna make it to Friday. And also, what it sounds like is maybe we can't guarantee that Adam Peters is going to be with the San Francisco 49ers for much longer. So there are multiple things to unpack today, but let's unpack this situation that I just came across regarding 49ers assistant general manager Adam Peters and potentially joining the Texans as their general manager. And some of you might be like, why? How does this even make sense? We're what, a couple weeks away from the draft? How is this even a possibility? Well, let's talk about it. Pro Football Talk, ran by Mike Florio, is reporting on these rumors. So, if you've read this report, it has to start with the current GM for the Texans, and that's Nick Casario. Apparently, based on a report written by John McClain, who covers the Texans, he's like their number one beat reporter. Um, there had been rumors uh, around league meetings that Casario will actually be leaving the Texans after the draft, and he'll be returning to the returning to the New England Patriots, where he came from. So how does this relate to Adam Peters, you might ask? Because if you go through and you read this article, it's basically talking about the organizational changes that are clearly going on with the Texans. Obviously, they brought in a whole new staff with D'Amico Ryans and all that type of stuff. So it's interesting because the deadline date for this to all go down is after the draft. So once the draft is completed, the work is done for both, let's say for the Texans, Patriots, and the 49ers, who could potentially be impacted by this. That's when it would get done. So it would be a surprise to me, to be honest, to see Casario leave the Texans because you finally get a new coach in D'Amico Ryans, a phenomenal coach at that. You have the number 2 overall pick, and Casario could really build a foundation with the Texans here. So it is interesting to see kind of why he would potentially leave after the draft. But the reason and how this got connected to the San Francisco 49ers is from 49ers beat reporter Mike Silver. Mike Silver connected this back to the San Francisco 49ers. So obviously at first it was just like, okay, that's an interesting rumor about Nick Casario, but what does that have to do with the 49ers? Well, this is what um Mike Silver tweeted out, quote tweeting the article, and he had this to say about this particular topic. Says, to further flesh out the rumor, the talk is that 49ers assistant general manager Adam Peters would be targeted to replace Casario. Now, if it was just a rumor or a lie, like Alberto says, why is there a succession plan to the rumor? The rumor has a rumor. Um, so again, where there's smoke, there's fire. We don't know how real this smoke is. It's interesting, but you have two different people who are tapped in, plugged into the league, reporting on the same topic, but from different aspects. Pro Football Talk, they didn't say a single thing about Adam Peters. They didn't mention Adam Peters. They didn't mention the San Francisco 49ers. They didn't mention the succession plan, who's going to step in for Casario. They didn't say nothing. It's Mike Silver who's saying the talk is that the 49ers assistant GM that could be targeted is Peters to replace Casario. So this, in my opinion, would be a big blow for the 49ers. I think Adam Peters has been instrumental in being able to identify talent. I know that uh I know John Lynch is at the top as, you know, the main uh the main guy with the San Francisco 49ers, right? But Adam Peters does a lot of the work in regards to identifying talent, drafting talent, scouting, all that stuff. Like Adam Peters is the guy, I think, in regard when it comes to really being able to do the evaluation aspect of it. I think being a general manager in today's NFL is so much more than just identifying talent. Like there's so many things that you have to do as a general manager from a PR standpoint, from an evaluation standpoint, from a personnel managerial standpoint. There's just so many things. So I really do think Adam Peters has been tasked with that. The football evals, that's our guy. So it's interesting to say the least. It's a rumor. It could not be true. Nothing could happen. This could just be some smoke. And 100%. I don't know if I believe it. But what will be interesting is if Casario does leave, you have to fill the replacement. Who's it going to be? And if D'Amico Ryans is someone that clearly the Texans trust and are going to give him an opportunity to kind of be like Kyle Shanahan potentially. Like, think about it, right? The San Francisco 49ers hired Kyle Shanahan first, and then Kyle hired John Lynch. Well, what if it's that same kind of scenario? What if the Texans hired D'Amico Ryans to then hire his own general manager that he could work with? Again, it's going to be interesting. Did Casario hire D'Amico, or did the owner hire D'Amico and give D'Amico free range to bring in his own, like, full blown rebuild? So interesting to say the least. Is this going to happen? I'm not going to bet on it. I'm not going to push my chips into the center and say this is absolutely going to happen. But the original report had nothing to do with the San Francisco 49ers. Clearly, Mike Silver's hearing something. So it is very interesting to see. I don't want to see it happen. 49ers already lost Rand Carthon to the Tennessee Titans general manager position. They've lost Martin Mayhew. Queasy is the general manager for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if I want to see the San Francisco 49ers lose yet another front office staff member, especially Adam Peters, who has been here since this new regime took over in 2017, and again has climbed his way up. He's been doing interviews. Well, this year, remember, he actually declined interviews. So this is what makes the whole Adam Peters things very interesting because Adam Peters declined some interviews for general managers this year. So we'll see. We'll see. But there's a little bit of smoke. There is a little bit of smoke. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But of course, shout out to old SDS, man. Shout out to you guys. Hopping on a little earlier today because I figured why not? Why not? Shout out the bread gang. Good morning to you all. I mean, it's still the morning for me. It's 11:18. Is this emergency stream? Not necessarily. Not really. But it is something that I'm because it could become an emergency. I would consider it an emergency if the 49ers lost Adam Peters. I think Adam Peters is phenomenal. I have very high respect for Adam Peters, uh, what he's been able to do, and I have faith in the San Francisco 49ers that they would be able to get something done and obviously have a kind of plan in place to be able to kind of work through this, but man, that would be tough. I really, really do like Adam Peters, uh, and all that type of stuff. Uh, I will never use dark mode for my graphics. It'll never happen. You will never sway me at all. So we will continue to figure it out. But again, interesting smoke to kind of track down here today. There's also some other smoke regarding San Francisco 49ers tight ends. So this was from Matt Miller of ESPN. He's been doing draft work for started with Bleacher Report over like a decade ago, and obviously has worked his way up to ESPN. He's pretty plugged in. I'm gonna take let's work through what the report was. Apparently, the San Francisco 49ers have, quote, done more work than any other team on tight ends, specifically tight ends. And we kind of already knew this. Whether it was myself, Steph Sanchez, Jordan Elliott, Jason Aponte, we were all at the combine talking to all these tight ends. A lot of these tight ends had formal meetings with the San Francisco 49ers at the combine. So we knew this. Like, we knew that the San Francisco 49ers were clearly circling the wagons around the tight end, and rightfully so. Whether it's a tight end 2 or a tight end 2 that could eventually become tight end 1, because unfortunately, the NFL hasn't figured out how to make these players last forever. And if I could, I would make George Kittle be able to last forever. But the reality is that's not the case. And so the 49ers have to begin that process of one, backfilling a capable. The San Francisco 49ers need a capable backup. All right. I think you all agree with me. Like, for a team that relies so heavily on 2 tight end sets, fullbacks, they just have not had adequate backup tight ends. Well, let me rephrase that. I think they've had adequate backups, but they haven't had high level backups. I mean, when I'm talking high level backups, think of Vernon Davis and Delaney Walker. Think of those two. That's a high level backup. Delaney Walker? What are we talking about? Delaney and Vernon together, legendary. But considering the fact that the San Francisco 49ers trot out 2 tight ends onto the field a ton, and you're you have an undrafted free agent in Ross Dwelly. You have a former 6th round pick in Charlie Warner. You got a veteran guy on a very cost-effective deal last year in Tyler Croft. There seems like you could put a little bit higher emphasis into the backup tight end position, correct? I think we all agree with that. So I'm happy about this. This tight end class is deep, like deep, deep. Probably the deepest since we've seen since George Kittle's class in 2017. When at the time of that draft, it just felt like there was a million tight ends. I think Njoku came out of that class. Evan Ingram. At the time, OJ Howard was considered a big time prospect. There's a lot of tight ends, good tight ends in that particular class. But this class is, I think, deeper. The tight ends that are coming out of this, it's crazy. And we already know the San Francisco 49ers probably aren't going to be in play for guys like this. Mayer's probably going to go in the first round. Washington's probably a second rounder. Laporta maybe falls into the middle of the second. But beyond that, there's still a ton of tight ends down the road that the 49ers could get and add to this room. And I think they have to. I know if you guys have been rocking with me on this channel, I've been talking about the tight ends all offseason. I think it's up there in like I think tier 1 priorities, O-line, safety, edge, because you have kind of some perceived holes at the starting spots. But when you start talking about other holes, it's tight end too. You got to fill that tight end too, man, because we understand George Kittle, although in my opinion, the best tight end in the NFL because of what he does as a receiver and blocker. He's a physical guy, and he gets caught in the wash sometimes, and that can lead to injuries. And you have to have someone that can come in and perform at a high level. I think Warner has proven he could be a serviceable blocker, unproven as a receiver. Ross Dwelly has proven that he could fill in at fullback. He's shown he's a capable receiver, but he's really fallen off as a blocker. So he can't even he was 4th string last year. He didn't even really see the field. So I think it would be wise for the San Francisco 49ers to go out and get a legit tight end too. You can get one in the 3rd round, or you can get one in the 5th round. Go the Kittle route again. I even think you could get a 5th round. I'm actually going to be dropping a mock draft today where I did exactly that. The guy that I wanted wasn't particularly there in the 3rd round, so I got my guy in the 5th round. A little teaser to the tight end that I took, but I took a tight end in the 5th round in my mock that I'm going to drop today, and I think he would be an instant upgrade over the 2 guys that are currently on the roster. So it makes sense for the San Francisco 49ers to do this. We also had some other reports. Before we move on to the next report, what tight ends do you want to see the San Francisco 49ers draft? I'm curious who it is. Drop it in the chat below. What tight end do you want to see the San Francisco 49ers target, whether 3rd, 4th, or 5th round? I think that's a sweet spot. You can get someone in the 6th or the 7th, But I think if you wanna get one of these guys that can actually be not the next George Kittle because George is an anomaly, but someone who could be impactful in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, I think that's where you gotta start targeting tight end. Um, and no, it spoiler alert, it's actually not Davis Allen, even though I love him. Uh, even though I love him, and he was a part of that mock process, but didn't ultimately make it where I wanted him to be. So I pivoted a little bit. But regardless, 49ers in the business to get a tight end. This came out earlier this morning. So this one's a little bit interesting. The San Francisco 49ers met or are actually having former first round draft pick Laquan Treadwell uh, in the building. They're bringing this guy in for a visit. That's pretty serious. Last year, Laquan Treadwell played for the Seattle Seahawks. Uh, so this one was interesting to me. I used to be a big fan of Laquan Treadwell. I actually thought Laquan Treadwell was going to be good coming out of Ole Miss, and he did not turn out to be good. I don't know what happened when he went to the NFL, so maybe you could call him a miss on my part. But as a prospect, Laquan Treadwell was pretty dang nice. He looked like he was going to translate. He looked like a AJ Brown type guy that was going to be able to have success in the NFL, and ultimately did it. Yeah, he spent 4 years with the Minnesota Vikings. Uh, the, I think the most receiving production that he ever had in one season was like 400 and something yards, and that came with the Jaguars in 2021. So Treadwell just he never met the expectation that I had for him, that the NFL had for him being a first round draft pick. But the San Francisco 49ers bring him in. He's 27 years old. So he's not like a fossil or anything. Maybe he could be someone that could contribute down the stretch. But if, let's say, the San Francisco 49ers do sign Laquan Treadwell, right now, he feels like a camp body. He feels like a guy that will be able to potentially compete for a spot, but just doesn't feel like he feels like one of those veteran practice squad guys that you bring in for camp. He doesn't make the final 53, but you bring him back as a veteran on the practice squad. Maybe you elevate. He feels like one of those guys. So it'll be interesting because, like I said, this is a guy that I thought was really, really talented coming out of Ole Miss, but just never lived up to the potential. So it is interesting to see how that stuff ultimately plays out. So we got three little pieces today, not too bad. Um, is Dwelly on notice? Yeah, I think Dwelly's on notice. I think Dwelly was on notice kind of back in 2021 when he got jumped by Charlie Warner in the depth chart. I'm actually kind of surprised that they brought him back, but again, he's familiar. They know what he's capable of. Um, they carried 4 tight ends last year. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they even draft 2 tight ends. But it'll be very interesting. If the 49ers can have a dual threat at tight end, what else wouldn't this offense have? Well, they wouldn't have a solidified franchise quarterback. Sorry, too soon? Too soon for that? um, but that kinda leads me let me get through some of these tight end questions. Is there a world where we draft 2 tight ends this draft? One guy who has produced and we know can go, and maybe one prospect who has traits to be good, 150,000,000%. I agree. I would absolutely, absolutely have this in my draft strategy, um, because again, this tight end class is so deep. And if you can get one in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then come back, grab another one in the 6th or 7th, heck yes, 100%. And again, if it doesn't work out, they don't beat out Warner, they don't beat out Dwelly, just bring him back on the practice squad. Um, yes, 100%. I think there's a world where they can take 2 guys for sure. Media says, I'm a big fan of Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State. Where do you see him going? He could be a guy that goes before where the 49ers pick, or he could be there in the 3rd. Because the tight end class is so deep, it's going to be fascinating to see where these guys ultimately land. Because Tucker Kraft is a guy, Laporta, Washington, Kincaid, Meyer. Um, the list of tight ends is extensive in that regard. Luke Musgrave, Oregon State, Josh Wiley, Cincinnati, Brenton Strange, Luke Schoonmaker, uh, Will Mallory, Zach Kuntz, Cameron Latu, Braden Willis, my guy Davis Allen, Payne Durham. Like the list goes on and on. So it's like I would say there's a chance that there's 6 or 7 tight ends that go before the 49ers pick at 99, and Tucker is right on that fringe, like, he's right there. Um, so it's gonna be fascinating to see how these teams value these tight ends, with all this, uh, but I mocked Tucker Kraft my mock 2.0. But it'll be interesting to see what he does. Hot take: could we call Jordan Matthews again to play the tight end position? I wish before he was a wide receiver, and despite his injuries, I wished he could have switched him to tight end. Yeah, I mean he was tight end last year. Then he tore his ACL in training camp, I believe it was. So that's tough. I actually haven't watched Luke yet, but oh, he's from Santa Rosa. Nice. Hey, shout out my guy Brandon, man. What a legend. He says, shout out the SDS squad. Get y'all gluten intake up, Brad. Off topic question, but what's your all time 49ers memory? Much love to everyone. Whoo. All-time 49er memory, and shout out Brandon for the super chat. I appreciate that, and, we'll go off topic, then we'll come back. Um, my all-time favorite 49er memory. God, when it comes to favorites, I'm so indecisive, so, like, I always find a group of things. It's really hard for me to, like, narrow it down to one, so I'll give you a couple. I'll give you a couple because it's like 1A, 1B, 1C. It's really hard for me to be like, one of my favorite 49ers memories was, what was it? The 2011 div was it the divisional round playoff game? Saints versus 49ers. The reason why that it was just such a fun game for me is because it was a combination of 2 of my favorite things in the world. I love snowboarding. I'm big into snowboarding. I've been doing it for years, practically my whole life. So that particular day, I was in Tahoe, and I think it was a 1 o'clock game. So I got onto the mountain early, first on the chair. Uh, I had my Mike Iupati jersey on. Still have pictures of that day. Had my Mike Iupati jersey on, and just vibed all day or for all morning on the mountain. Um, just a beautiful day. Snow was clutch. Great day of snowboarding. Got home right before the game and then proceeded to watch still one of my all-time favorite games ever, that Saints versus 49ers game in the playoffs. And at the end, I went and jumped in the snow. Uh, absolutely. I was just like, it was a great day. It was a great day for me. Again, the combination of snowboarding and one of the greatest 49er games I'd ever seen, like compounded into one situation. It was just something that I'll always remember. I got to take my gosh, it time is flying. Another one of my favorite memories was getting to take my wife and my son to Candlestick. That was cool, even though my son was only like 1 years old. Still got him to Candlestick. So he can say, even though he won't remember it and doesn't remember it, he can say he's been to Candlestick to watch a 49er game. So that was pretty cool. That was a fun experience. Um, and the other one, man, there's a whole bunch. The NFC Championship game, 2019, got to take my I took my son for his birthday, so he was about 8, 7 or 8. Um, and the NFC Championship game at Levi's. Levi's was electric. The 49ers destroyed the Packers to go to the Super Bowl after that magical 2019 season. Um, that was fun. That was a great game. There's so many, man. I have so many 49ers memories. It's unbelievable. Great question though. And shout out to Brandon, man. Brandon's been blessing me with some super chats the last couple days. I really do appreciate that, especially during the slow time, especially during the slow off season that it has become. But a lot of good memories, and shout out to the gluten gang. um, but what were we talking about before? The wonderful squirrel that we just went down. I think we are talking about tight ends. Yeah, tight ends. Uh, do you think there's a chance they could draft Dontavian Wicks? I think there's a chance. They met with them at the combine, so there's some interest. There's definitely some preliminary interest there. Um, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. He feels like he could be there around the 5th round. So it'll be interesting. I do think the 49ers draft a wide receiver for sure. Um, do we continue the tradition of going DN first? Probably, for sure. But I also think, when we're talking about rumors and we're talking about stuff like that, I think the 49ers are going to be interested in quarterback. I mean, they seem to be doing a lot of homework on Dorian Thompson Robinson. So it's going to be fascinating to see this draft. I think this draft, even though we don't pick until 99, I think there's going to be some stuff that goes down. I'm starting to really prepare for that. Like trades, whether it's players or picks or movement, feels like there's some stuff that could go down. I don't know exactly what. I'm just feeling it, deep down in the gut. The San Francisco 49ers could absolutely be up to something. Um, and they had Jake Hayner in there yesterday. You had Tanner McKee, Hainer, Fresno State quarterback, Danville kid for the local pro day, Tanner McKee, Stanford quarterback. So they got another extra good look at those guys. Uh, Jake Hainer getting a lot of similarities to Brock Purdy. Hainer reportedly scored extremely high on the S2 cognitive testing, which I've done some reading on. And apparently, that testing is a pretty big deal from everything that I've read and the way that it's correlating players processing and how it's correlating to field processing. Typically they've used the Wonderlic to kind of judge like processing and smarts and stuff like that, but this S2 testing sounds like it's absolutely taking over the Wonderlic. So because Brock Purdy at a last year's draft was the highest scorer on this S2 testing when in terms of processing, spatial awareness, those types of things. And clearly, you watch Brock Purdy on tape. Remember the spatial awareness thing? Remember when we were watching him throw and he's constantly getting it over the outstretched arms of defensive players? I'm like, one or two, three times it can happen. You get a little lucky. And I was like, this is like the 11th time that he's gotten it out over the outstretched fingertips of a defensive end. I'm like, this is spatial awareness. Like, Brock has legitimate elite spatial awareness. And I think that's due to necessity, being smaller, playing behind bigger offensive linemen. You will see him sidestep into a throwing lane because you have an offensive lineman, he will bump over into the open gap and then throw the pass. So we'll see, man. We will see. I do think the 49ers poking around quarterbacks is very, very interesting. 100%. Very interesting. So doesn't that seem to add kindling to the Trey Lance rumors? Yeah, it kind of does. It kind of does, in my opinion. I do feel like the 49ers like interest in quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks that you're not going to be able to get around to the practice squad, add some kindling to that fire. Obviously the Trey Lance talk is heavy. It's been discussed at length, but if the 49ers are serious about learning about some of these quarterbacks and they're done with the experiment of Trey Lance, it could happen. I'm not ruling it out. I'm not. Like again, we have to keep a open perspective, and the Trey Lance thing. It's like, man, I think we have to be prepared for it. Like, do I think it makes the most sense? No, I don't think it makes sense to trade a guy that you spent so much on for basically nothing in comparison to what you got for him. I don't like that idea. Um, but again, it might be beyond that, right? Might be beyond that. It might be beyond you know, value. Maybe they're just ready to turn the page. I don't know. It's gonna be fascinating. Going to be fascinating. Guess what? We're still about two and a half weeks away from the draft, so this stuff's only going to heat up. It's only going to be more prevalent. There's only going to be more rumors. There's only going to be more stuff to talk about. But at the end of the day, man, it's interesting, and I don't think we can discredit it. Hayner has some Beathard-like toughness too. I think Kyle could like. Hayner looks like Brock Purdy 2.0. Like just the way he looks, the way he carries himself. I thought it was funny that he's older than Brock Purdy. I thought that was funny. Um, but if they don't view Trey Lance as the starter, then who knows? Who knows what that means for Trey Lance's future? Yeah, I don't I hope we don't straight up cut him. Like we did Trey Sermon, and I don't think they would. Quarterback again, I think they understand quarterbacks are valuable assets. Also, Trey Lance is young. He's still young. So I apologize for the uh the ASMR there for a second. My allergies are tough. Allergies are going crazy right now. But I think the question when it comes to Trey Lance and other teams being interested in Trey Lance is how do you stack Trey Lance against this draft class, right? Like, would you consider Trey Lance right now a better prospect than Jake Hayner, a better prospect than Clayton Tune? If so, maybe there's a little bit more value there, and maybe a team would be willing to spend a second uh, or multiple picks on Trey Lance to kind of take on that project. So I think the 49ers at the end of the day, though, are going to keep all options open. I think they're preparing themselves for that potential to happen. I don't know if you heard the rumors. Again, more rumors and take it for what it's worth, but it doesn't sound like the Texans like CJ Stroud, and they're saying they don't like Anthony Richardson. And when we talk about the S2 testing, apparently CJ Stroud didn't test well on the S2 testing. So the fact that people are really holding that S2 testing in a high regard, and especially for quarterbacks and processing, is that enough to sway the Texans away from taking a quarterback at 2? Do they go with the local kid, the Texas Tech edge, and trade a second for Trey? Does that happen? I don't know. But it's going to be very interesting. So we'll see what ultimately plays out. But the rumors are starting to pick up. And my guess is they're only going to continue to keep going. So, especially if we get more news of the 49ers working stuff that are working out quarterbacks in that regard and doing that type of stuff, it's only going to add to it. So, we're going to continue to make sure that we have discussed it, we're aware about it, and not going to be blindsided by anything. So, that's if the Texans offered their second, Will McDonald could still be on the board. I like Will McDonald, man. Again, if the San Francisco 49ers are done with the Trey Lance project and they could get a player like Will McDonald, I could be okay with it. I'd be okay with it. Again, I will never love the idea of them trading up to 2 or to 3, all that capital just to not not see it all the way through. I don't love that. Um, definitely don't love that. And you know what? You know what's gonna make me especially not love that? Is if Justin Fields comes out this year and has a Jalen Hurts or a, uh, Josh Allen type, like, resurgence. Again, it's that year 3. We've talked about that year 3 with quarterbacks that need development for a long time. Justin Fields heading into that year 3. If Justin Fields takes that jump and with the weapons, continuity with coaching staff, front office, and they build up that offensive line, and they have a better scheme around around Justin, and Justin fits into it better, and he sees the field better, and he starts processing and reading better. And Justin Fields has that year 3 jump, like Jalen Hurts, like Josh Allen. I'm gonna be sick. And we trade Trey. Oh, I'm gonna be sick. I'm gonna be sick to my stomach because you guys know it was Fields at 3 all day for this ginger beard. Uh, it was Fields at 12. It was Fields at 12 until they moved up, and then it was Fields at 3. So I don't want Justin to not be successful. I think Justin's going to be successful. I think he's built the right way, and once it clicks for him, once like the quarterback processing clicks, I think he could be really special. So it's just going to make me sick if we trade Trey and then Justin Fields goes off. It's going to make me just sick to my stomach. But I just want clarity, man. I'm at the point where I want clarity. I want clarity for my own peace. And if that's with Trey, it's without Trey, so be it. I just want clarity. I just want to know. I want to stop all the hypotheticals, whether it's him, it's not him, rip the band-aid off. Let's figure this out. Uh and let's move forward. Jeez. But hey, again, leaves for a uh very exciting offseason with tons of things to speculate about, right? So that's what we're up to. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be dropping a mock draft right after this. So mock draft 3.0 is going to be hitting the timeline here in probably about an hour or so. I might come back on and do a little recap of the mock, some new players that I haven't mocked before. And that's kind of the whole process of my mock drafts is I don't want them to be ultra repetitive in regards to players that I'm picking. So basically how I'm structuring my mocks is you guys know what like my process is when it comes to like who like positional targets. So I'm attacking all these positional targets based on who's there and who's available. And then when I start probably in about a week or two, I'm gonna really dial it in to like who I want them to take. Like a lot of these guys I still want them to take, but it's a process. I want to be able to showcase as many prospects as I can leading up to like the final draft. Does that make sense? These are mock drafts. These are the rough drafts leading up to the final mock. And spoiler alert, this is the first mock I didn't trade. So far, the first 2 mocks have had trade ups. This one I decided to stay put. And so This one I stayed 89, 102, 101, and 102. And again, I don't think that's what they do, but this one just testing it out a little bit differently. So we'll see how everything goes. Justin says, I'll be punching air too. We could have had Parsons at 12 without a trade up. Bro, we're going to be sick if we're just going to be sick. It's just what it's going to come down to. The only remedy is more cowbell and a Super Bowl. That's it. That's the only thing that's going to make us forget or even care about it at all. And again, the 49ers get a Super Bowl. I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't. I want that ring. So that's what this whole process is. That's what we're doing. We're trying to see how do the 49ers put themselves in position to go get that 6th ring. So I'll probably be back on a little bit later today, maybe in like an hour and a half or so. Want to talk through the mock and see if any other stuff drops, any news, any we've already had quite a bit some rumors drop today. So just to recap, Adam Peters could potentially be on the move. And the reason why that is a potential is because Nick Casario, it's being rumored that he will not be the Texans GM after the draft, which means they're going to need a new GM. And San Francisco 49ers have an assistant GM. It wouldn't be a lateral move for Adam Peters. It would be a bump up. You know what I'm saying? So, and he'd be able to partner with DeMeco Ryans. It actually makes a lot of sense for Adam Peters. But is it a reality? Well, one domino needs to fall, and that's the Texans domino, where Casario leaving. Then the second domino is backfilling Casario with Peters. And again, it makes sense. The natural correlation is there. We'll see. Mike Silver was the first to report that. Tight ends are clearly in the works for the 49ers, and quarterback. Shout out Cynthia. Appreciate you guys with the super chats. She says, thanks for keeping us so eloquently informed. I like that one. I don't know if you'd ever, talk about me and eloquently in the same sentence, but I will take it, Cynthia. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much for being a member to the channel. And thank you to everyone else in the Sourdough Squad. I do appreciate you guys more than you know. Appreciate everyone hopping in, vibing, and being a part of the Sourdough Squad, a.k.a. the Gluten Gang. And shout out to all you guys. Again, sending the super chats. That really does help. And again, you don't have to send the super chat. Just smashing that like button, commenting, watching the videos when they get posted, turning on those post notifications. And again, if you're having issues with post notifications, this is a known issue. I saw someone hop in here saying they didn't get notified again. Charlene says, if you're having this issue with post notifications, unsubscribe, make sure to resubscribe, and then reset the notification, and it should help get you going. Grab your cookies on the way out. Like I said, I'll probably be on later today. Talk some mock draftage. And I'm excited to talk about some of the prospects I got cooking the San Francisco 49ers. Smash that like button on your way out. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you in a little bit. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see